I've been saying for some time that I believe ultimately Nigel Farage will not be Prime Minister of this country. That doesn't mean to say that Reform won't win a general election. In fact, it's pretty much dead certain that they will do, and failing that, do very well. But I remember when Farage came back to the fold, where he turned around and he said, I guarantee you 5 years. And at this point in time, that was right up to the very doorstep of a general election. I thought, okay. Now, the reason I say that the way I do is because of my previous experience, having lived and still do have done all my life in a constituency that Farage came down and tried to win. And if you hang on till the end of the video, I'll tell you a little bit more about that and my own experience. But rolling forward in time, you get this situation where you get Reform. They come bouncing in, all win seats. And then, things start to change because you get all that very hard line. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do the other to get themselves in the door. And it became very apparent very quickly that once they were in the door, they start behaving like uniparty, rank and file politicians. And people like me who have been anti-establishment for a very long amount of time think, I don't think I like this. Well, you remember that speech that Rupert Lowe did where he stood up and basically gave it what for and said, along the lines of, if you misbehave and you're not from here, you will no longer be here. You'll be gone. And Farage apparently, and it's well documented online, had a quiet word in his shell like and said, you can't say that. And Rupert said, I bloody well can, and I'm bloody well going to, And out he went. And of course, we know the fallout when Rupert did that interview with the papers, and we know everything that happened after that. And generally speaking, if Farage doesn't want to deal with anything, at least what I've noticed, he goes, oh, don't care, not bothered. But every now and again, you will catch him, and he will say some things. Now, the first tweet I want to share with you is this one here. And this is from Europa.com. Nigel Farage said that when Rupert Lowe suggested considering mass deportations, that was the moment at which I realised we just had to get rid of him. So that's the official line. So let's play this clip, see what he says.
You see, when he stood up and said that we've got to consider the mass deportation of entire communities, including those born in the United Kingdom, that just moves way beyond a point of reasonableness, of decency, of morality. And that was the moment at which, I realized we just had to get rid of him and get rid of him as quickly as we could. And I think in terms of the way we dealt with that, we were probably more brutal than the other parties. But you know what? That's the way it's going to be. Thank you.
So there you go. He's basically made quite an admission there, saying, the reason we had to get rid of him was because of what he was saying. And, publicly, the trigger point was that newspaper article. That seemed to be where it all kicks off. But like the situation we've got, say, with Advance and Restore at the moment, we don't actually know what happens behind closed doors. A lot of that, I suspect we never will. We can only make educated assumptions based on what we see outside. But if you have a look at the situation at the time, all right, this is the justification for it. There's some kind of story about him physically threatening Zahir Yusuf. Come off it. He has his firearms taken from him. He's, put in a position where he could have been arrested and put into prison, Rupert Lowe this is, and expelled from the party, whip removed and everything else. So that's their version of trying to get rid of the guy. Lift carpet up, sweep under, stamp down a few times and hope he disappears quietly. Well, of course, that hasn't really happened, has it? Why did this happen? Ego? Was it anything else? And really, that sent really big alarm bells through my head, really big alarm bells. And I sent a message to a fellow YouTuber a little while back, and I said, what I can see is a certain individual who's just been given a shadow cabinet position, in inverted commas, in Nigel Farage's potential future government, being parachuted into a safe seat. I can then see Farage at some point stepping down, or get them as far as winning an election, or alternately, as has happened in the past, the whole bloody lot self-destructs. He goes, and then this other individual is firmly into place, and stop and think, stop and work it out. And then when that happens, this country is in a lot of trouble. We've also got a 50-50 chance of that happening with the Labour Party as well. And again, country could be in a lot of trouble. But really, getting rid of him, you're going in a direction that this party is not going in. That is the point where I realised that's the end of it, the end of Farage. And people need to wake up. They really do. Now, I want to show you this one. And this says, Nigel Farage responds to Restore Party. Reform leader Nigel Farage refuses to acknowledge Rupert Lowe's undeniable breakthrough success. Do you think Restore are a racist party? Absolutely no idea. They have no interest in me at all. That's what he says. Now, let's have a look. You see that face?
Hi Nigel. So Rupert Lowe set up his new party, Restore, and since setting it up, there's been lots of Twitter accounts associated with the party that have shown racism and anti-Semitism. Do you think Restore are a racist party?
I've absolutely no idea. They're of no interest to me at all.
Okay.
Thank you. There are 11 of these parties. There's Heritage Party. I mean,
under our electoral system, you need one party to vote for to get the Labour Party out. You can't have all these splinter groups. It's not going to work.
And setting up parties hard.
I've always thought AB plus is the right solution, because if you have that top-up vote in the second vote, you then get significant minority voices get representation. So,
make of that what you will. At the end of the day, when people come into this country, they start families, they come here for whatever reason. What you should have is a situation where they integrate, they obey the law, and they get on. There should be a requirement for that if you're going to come and live here. By God, you have it in any other country. And if you commit a crime against the state, particularly as abhorrent as some of the things we've been hearing from Rupert Lowe's inquiry, you should be deported. And I make no apologies for that. I believe it. And if members of your family come here with you, they have knowledge of what you've been up to, either by omission, as in they've not said anything, or they are involved themselves, they should be deported. And if that means massive numbers of individuals have to leave, then so be it. We need to get a situation where we have the people here that should be here, people that were born here, people that are here that obey, contribute, work, speak a the lingo and everything else. And anybody that can't obey the law, can't integrate, can't work because they don't want to rather than they can't, they should be deported. So, it's as hardline as that. It really is. Now, the story. You remember UKIP? Obviously, UKIP is still a thing, just about. Well, when Nigel Farage was leader of UKIP, he decided that he was going to stand in the South Thanet constituency. Now, South Thanet, as it was at the time, all the boundary lines have been redrawn since, but South Thanet is where I live. And he came down here with his entourage, and when he did hustings, He went around all the local boozers. The first time I saw him, he was standing outside my local having a fag and chatting to some blokes outside. Went in, heard what he had to say, and I thought, I like this. And just to be sure, very anti-establishment I was at that point. So I said, right, I'll get behind Nigel, I get behind UKIP. And you believed everything they said they were going to do. You know, they were the party that was going to change it all. To be fair, I think the Conservatives threw everything in the kitchen sink at this area because they didn't want Farage to be elected. Just so happens he didn't. What happened? Instead of carrying on, he resigned, disappeared. UKIP, which in my opinion was brought in to destroy the English independence movement in the first place, fell, and it had never been the same since. I think Gerard Batten had a good stab at it, but it's not really come back to any form of meaningful life in a political sense since. What happened to the local council? UKIP won the local council, but quickly it became apparent they weren't going to do anything they said they were going to do. They had no intention of it. So all those powerful words, saying everything that people wanted to hear while they were on the election campaign, it was all lies. And very quickly, UKIP was overtaken by infighting amongst themselves, amongst the other councillors, and they actually lost the council. So it all collapsed. Where was Farage? He'd already gone. Then we had the Brexit Party. Oh, this was a doozy. We're going to get the European question dealt with. We're going to get out the European Union. We're going to stand people in every seat all over the place. I actually got on quite well with a local candidate. What did Farage do? In a deal with the Tories, he stood down a load of them at the last minute, including my mate, who again was a local man, a local politician. That all fell to pieces. Now we've got reform. Reform have got further than any of them, really. Like, you know, if there was a general election tomorrow, I think people would have to vote one of two ways. I do not consent. They would have to do it in their masses for it to have an effect, or they'd have to vote reform to get Labour out. But long term, I'm sorry, they're not the answer. They've had far too many Tories come in. This is one thing I like about Restore. He keeps saying there won't be any politicians that you know of. Nobody establishment. It will all be fresh blood. Got to be done that way. The other thing with reform, they've shifted political direction to such a degree, I don't recognise them anymore. I am right wing. People accuse me of far right and all the rest of it. I'm probably centre right, but there are certain things which I take a very, very firm line on, including what we've discussed here. But all that being told, I think ultimately Farage will be toast. I just can't see him being Prime Minister. And I think we're getting towards end game. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments. It comes across as a reform bashing video, as I've been accused of again and again. So be it, if that's what you want to think. But it's just an analysis of the situation. So always hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share my stuff. I'll talk to you soon. Toodaloo.